All right, now that we are outside of the NBA, I think it's time that we talk about the NFL. All right, hey, what's up, guys? It's Nonstop Steph, and today I want to go over the two running backs who I think are going to change the landscape of the NFL at the running back position in the upcoming years. So the effects may not show here this year, but I think this year will be the one that actually decides how things will go on further years, right? So no matter what point, you're always going to have a debate at who the best running backs are, whether you hear Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. I mean, there's a long list of great running backs in the NFL. And year over year, you're going to realize that, man, that list is always flexible, right? One year, you might think it's this guy. The next year, you might think it's that. However, this year, there are two running backs who I think are going to change the landscape of the NFL. And those two running backs is Dalvin Cook and Saquon Barkley, right? So this is obviously coming off the backdrop of Dalvin Cook just was recently released by the Vikings. He's had interviews talking about how he wants to go somewhere where he feels valued by the organization. Saquon has not signed his franchise tag. We understand that he wanted a long-term contract. He wants that long-term guarantee. However, they went ahead and signed Daniel Jones first, which, I can understand that. However, Saquon, if we're being honest, has been the best player in that franchise for a couple years now, if we're being honest. So for him, I see his side. I understand if I was the guy you've been riding the coattails of for year over year now, granted injury history on both of those two running backs, there's no debating what they do and the skill and the talent they have. And quite frankly, they do things that other running backs just cannot. So I want to show you guys this play right here, right? I'm going to slow this down, right? Let's look at this. Here on this play, you can actually see where this, for many running backs, is a dead play, right? You can see right where he's actually able to get out and break apart from the defense and turn what should have been a much smaller run into a massive run, right? And now look at this play right here, right? This play, the contact was made. It should have been stopped before the first down, right? Now you hear about other big backs and how many yards after contact they might be able to get, yak yards, right? And quite frankly, this is not one that every back in the league would be able to do, right? There's only a small number of backs who would be able to get to contact before the first down and continue for another 5+ yards. He got a little good push from his team, but that's not something that, like I said, most running backs in the game aren't doing that, right? Saquon's universally respected as, one of the faster, more agile, stronger backs, right? Everybody talks about the size of his legs. I mean, he's just a strong back. Like I said, there's not many guys who have this level of talent. He is one of the few. If you look at all-purpose yards here in the past season, he, of course, ranked in the top 10 to no surprise. And that was after they weren't actually running the rock the same that they were later on in the season, right? Not for anything on his end, but they were just gaining momentum. Daniel Jones was doing his thing. Nobody ever looked at Daniel Jones and said, wow, they found their guy. This guy's a star. But he's actually good enough, right? But that doesn't mean that you go away from what works. And Saquon Barkley is clearly something that worked. So the reason why I believe that he's going to be one of the few that can actually, or one of the two, I should say, that's going to change the landscape of the NFL for running backs going forward is depending on what he decides to do. If he decides to sit out this season, and the Giants, who are riding high momentum coming into this season, don't actually perform well, or even worse, miss the playoffs, I mean, this team could take a step backwards, all because they didn't value their star running back. And what will that say to other teams who do have a great running back, right? Like Christian McCaffrey, like Alvin Kamara, like all these other, great backs, Jonathan Taylor. Their teams are going to be forced to not want to ruin what they have because of the stance that Saquon and Dalvin Cook have pretty much made. They want to be paid, rightfully so, as the guys and with the level of importance that they provide their franchises. And I believe that that's what you're going to see here with Saquon. I think this year, depending on what he does, is really going to write the future for other top backs and the kind of contracts we start to see. There's a common thought process that when you're going through the NFL draft, you don't want to draft running backs high because They aren't looked at as your franchise. This is going to be the guy you hang on to for long periods of time. The main guys who get looked at that, quarterbacks, a couple other, skill positions, some DBs and whatnot. But the running back positions, technically, to be 100%, pretty undervalued if we're being honest. People don't give guys like Saquon, who do, tote the rock at a different level, enough credit. We may talk about how good he is, but at the same time, running back really, really could be effective, as we can see when it comes to Dalvin Cook as well, right? Check this out with him, right? Check out Dalvin Cook, right? So this is, again, another play that is different than you might see from other running backs. I'm going to slow this down here, and you could see here he is in the middle, in the midst of all that traffic, right? And there he keeps going. That's not standard. That's not a normal running back thing. You might have a couple running backs in this league who can do things like this, but that's not standard, right? Dalvin Cook, similar to Saquon, again, top 10 in all-purpose yards. His team actually was near the top of the NFL in terms of best record. Granted, yes, they did lose, but if you watched that game that they lost, you weren't watching that and saying, dang it, Dalvin Cook lost them the game, right? We saw the play, 4th down, why would you throw it behind the line, this, that, the other, right? But up until that point, you want your quarterback to take you over the top, but running backs like Dalvin Cook get you there. He gets you there, and now you need the quarterback to finish. That, like I said, unfortunately, I'm not trying to put any hate on Kirk Cousins, but he was the one who lost them that game, if we're being honest. There's all the jokes about, Kirk Cousins being anemic when it comes to the idea of playing, on, Monday Night Lights or whatever you want to call them, primetime games. He's just not that guy, right? So the one person who you don't look at in those situations is Dalvin Cook. He's been good. He's always been good. Obviously, there's always been the health concerns, but that is not, if you're in Dalvin Cook's shoes, pay me the value that I provide. I understand that at this point we're looking at Justin Jefferson as he is going to be their main guy. So unlike Saquon, who's clearly has been their main guy, there's not a lot of skill player talent on the Giants as opposed to the Vikings, who have been riding the coats of Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. If you're Dalvin Cook, you're saying, hey, all right, fine. You want to see if you guys can do this without me. We were nearly at the top, and I was providing all that I was providing. You guys got this? I bet. I don't blame him, because once again, he has a skill set that others cannot. You want to be able to keep some level of help inside the box, just because you don't want him to be able to get run loose, right? You don't want him to run loose. So that does allow for guys like Justin Jefferson to be available for, the type of plays that he makes. You have the play action passing game with both of these running backs because of how good they are. You're not going to want to just go ahead and, you see the fake run. Obviously, you don't think it's fake. You see the run action, you're crashing, because you know that these two running backs, you don't want to let Dalvin Cook's speed get ahead of you. You don't want to let Saquon play the way that he can play. You don't want to give him time to accelerate, burst through the hole, and now you've got to tackle that big back. You don't want that. So there's players, these guys right now, they're playing in ways that other teams, you can utilize that. That's why Daniel Jones is as effective as he can be, is because he has Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Kirk Cousins without Dalvin Cook in the back is not going to be as effective, because now the run is not as, as scary. The idea of, a play action pass, you're going to realize that these guys aren't going to bite on it as easily as they would have had it been Dalvin Cook. So that's some of the concerns that I have for both of their teams pretty much going forward, is that first and foremost, both of their quarterbacks will see a dip in their production, because the running backs have made it easier for them to provide the numbers and the success that both franchises have had over the last couple of years. Well, primarily last year especially. So in regards to the future impact on the running back market, I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see, like I said earlier, top running backs first and foremost, when you're coming out of the draft. I don't expect them to start getting drafted higher. However, I do believe that extension, those talks are going to become a little bit more hectic. These running backs now are going to have a little bit more, sway, if you want to say, in their contract negotiations, because I do believe that you're going to see guys like Alvin Kamara. Even if you come down to running backs like Raheem on the Dolphins and a few others, he may not be a big name running back, But I promise you that the Dolphins organization realized that he does open up a lot for that offense because of his speed. There's a number of running backs that we can name who actually have very, very big roles in that team's success. However, they don't get paid like. Obviously, this is a salary cap league, right? So they could only pay so many people so much. But when you are super, super utilized in that offensive success, like I said, both of these two running backs, top 10 in all purpose yards in the league, that's a lot of, attempts. A lot of times you're getting the rock, a lot of times that you're catching the ball out of the backfield. There's a lot that you contribute to the success of that organization. You're going to feel like you should be paid that way. And I don't think that they're wrong for that. So here's what I would like to see from the NFL pretty much going forward is I don't think that you're going to see guys all of a sudden just all start, making some sort of union and just say, we're going to go on strike, right? I don't expect a lot of running backs to say, we're not doing this no more. That would be silly to think because just because Saquon won't do it, there's another person waiting in line to take his spot and show why he deserves that spot, right? I do believe what we're going to see, however, is a lot more conversation around what positions should be paid what, right? You've seen actually recently we've seen a couple of defensive players signing massive deals. Everybody's resetting the market, right? And I don't think you're going to see running backs getting paid like defensive ends such as Aaron Donald or anything like that, but I do think you're going to start to see some running backs, some of those top tier running backs getting closer to that 20 mil per year mark, right? I mean, I'm not expecting right now, if you were to look at the top salaries, right? Saquon, if you ask me, he deserves obviously more than what getting. Yeah, I mean, that's just not a conversation I think we would debate. I don't think. Again, yes, you might look at Daniel Jones as your franchise quarterback, but it was only about a year ago that we were talking about trading him. Is he the quarterback of the future? Nobody has questioned Saquon if he's the running back of the future. He's the guy you want. When it comes to Dalvin Cook, there's not a list of running backs that you're like, I would take all of these guys over Dalvin Cook. You might find a couple, but you're not picking 10 running backs ahead of Dalvin Cook. You're just not doing that. So a guy like Dalvin Cook, wherever he goes, he will be appreciated because now they realize that he chose them and they're going to reciprocate that appreciation because he left what was a good situation, 13-4 record. And he's not going to say, you know what, it's just about winning and winning is all I care about. Because if that's all he cared about, he would have just stayed put. Nah, he's going to go to a place that's going to appreciate him and he's going to do what he has been doing to provide great performances the way that he has, right? So, anyways, with all that being said, I do want to say that, I would want to see, what is the impact in the future for these running backs. What are your guys' thoughts? Please comment on the video. Let me know if you guys think that I'm tripping, that these guys aren't going to do anything, and that the market's going to stay the same, and it's going to always stay the same. I think that had it been one of these running backs by themselves on any given year, as we've seen in the past, not a big deal. But when you have two of the top running backs in the same year making this kind of stance, especially after the years that they just came off of for those franchises, I think it's going to draw a lot of attention for the future of the NFL when it comes to these running backs. With all that being said, of course, like and subscribe. I do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. Thank you. Have a great day.